right, everyone. It is now a full hour and we will start the webinar. We will have some more people join throughout, I'm sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today for our third webinar. My name is Hilary Rand. I'm a partner at Think Hospitality and also one of the founding members of the new Baltic Hospitality Forum. So we are today, 8th of July, we're past midsummer, so thanks everyone for sticking with us. We've had some great content over the last 2 episodes. Today we will focus on product and service and how guest behavior has changed and will be changing, and we'll get to that in just a minute. I would like to first thank our partners, Enterprise Estonia and the city of Tallinn, who have supported us to put this all together over the 7 episodes. Just a little bit about our team. We are a small collection of people. There's 5 of us. There's Katrin, Marika, myself, Anette, and Ain. And we've been working on the content of the new Baltic Hospitality Forum. The first edition took place last year in April. We had 24 speakers and 204 delegates from 13 countries. And we were very excited to do it again for 2020. And it was supposed to happen in April, but guess what? Of course, it did not. So we have moved the forum to October of this year. We have some great speakers. We'll be reworking some of the content because times have changed. So do keep an eye on our website as time goes on. So what are the 7 episodes about? These can all be rewatched on our website. So just head there and do share with your teams. We have an infographic produced after every episode in both Estonian and in English. So please make sure you share that with your teams. There's some really good insights on it, and it's short and concise. And I'll show you a snapshot for the one last week. But this is the journey of the 7 episodes. So today we're going to talk about product and service. Next week, we're going to look at cost and revenue management, because we know there's a price war going on out there, and how to manage that best. We'll talk about communication with the focus on client. Then we'll look at real estate and finance, because there's a lot of factors that have changed in that realm as well, and that also, of course, drives the pipeline of development in the hospitality space, and then seeing what's the really big picture path forward. So like I said, we have wonderful GuestJoy who produces infographics for us after each session. They are available in both English and in Estonian. You can access them on our website, so do make sure you go there and take a look. So this is a snapshot of the last webinar we did last week of how to restart your team. It was all about looking at people as human beings, not as just human doings, which I think was a very, very big message. Really just understanding what are the needs of your team and the needs of yourself as well. So, and there's a great questionnaire that John shared that he did with his staff. So I do encourage you to go take a look at our website and download that as well, and make sure you use those tools. That's the reason we're really doing this. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our wonderful moderator for the day, Toomas Danneberg, Vice Rector for External Relations and Business Development at Estonian Business School. So Toomas, you can take over now and lead the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. Welcome to everyone to the 3rd episode. And today we're really going to focus on product and service development. And especially when we discuss this product and service development, I think in hospitality industry, I think last time Marika even mentioned that due to technology, still hospitality industry has not been, let's say, going through so much change, but I think we are forced to go into the change. If we look at the business perspective from the business school point of view, then we it's the same. I think it's today we're really doing it kind of in-class teaching stuff. Now we're hybrid. So what's going to happen? Consumer is changing, expectations are changing. And I really can say that it's not an easy journey. It's not an easy journey for the consumers, and neither for the companies actually, who really have to understand what's going to happen and what is really being, let's say, what's going to be ahead. So today, I think it's, if we look at the product and service, then especially in hospitality industry, I would say one of the key aspects there, or one of the central why we are really creating this product is, and why we are building the services to serve the customers, to deliver the different products, then we really talk about this customer experience, how to really create this remarkable experience. What is the remarkable? What is something that is, I'll really enjoy it. I will really give an extra point or extra kind of vote that you really remember. And for the company perspective, we really need to have this more custom advocates. But as we know, the customer behavior is changing quite a lot. Today, if we look at what's happening in the market, the context, also with the last pandemic situation, technology, I would say for the business perspective, we have quite many kind of factors and unknowns, how to manage those unknowns. And really, and looking at today, this product and service episode in Hospitality Industry Forum, then I think we have really great, three great speakers. And we can start with touching a bit more about consumer behavior, going into behavioral issues, because this is something that is really, really important to understand, because the more it goes over the data, technology, we look at the different generations, I think the behavioral issues are really, really crucial to understand it, because if you don't understand the behavioral issues, it's really difficult to build the product and services for the consumers. Therefore, we start with Daniel. Daniel is from Ogilvy Consulting, and Daniel gives us a bit larger picture, kind of broader picture about consumer behavior. Then we follow with the technology point of view, Annika Ülem from GuestJoy, and Annika will bring into the technology and also from the consumer kind of journey perspective. And if you look at the technology, always the question is, what can be done already before in terms of technology to prepare some consumer to already, let's say, to enjoy the services or products, and also along the journey, let's see. And lastly, Gilberto from PRISMA. Gilberto will somehow build this into the kind of conceptual picture. What is going to happen and how these changes and really have changed and influenced the whole kind of conceptual point of view, and also in the behavioral point, but also looking at kind of the space, hybrid spaces, etc. So we have three very interesting and I think very insightful presentations, and I think now it's time to start with Daniel. But before we start with each presentation, we run a small poll. Ellery, can you start running the poll, and then we start with Daniel's presentation?
Sure, thanks, Toomas. So the first poll will really be on behavior. And we like doing these polls because it gives us a bit of a sense of where the audience sits and what they think, and also will help our panelists to kind of direct some of the things that they will be sharing. So the first one is about your behavior, really. So these polls are all anonymous. They will now show up on your screen, so we won't know who answered what. So this is about decision making. So question is, how many of your decisions are done on an automatic basis each day versus conscious? So is it 50-50 automatic, 50 conscious? Is it 80% automatic, 20% conscious thinking, you know exactly what you're going to be doing? Or is it 95% automatic and 5% conscious? So just choose what you think is most appropriate for you. I'll give you a few minutes. I already see results coming in. Again, this is totally anonymous. We will not know who said what, so you feel comfortable and can vote, but please make sure you do, because it's very relevant insight for us and also our speakers to get a sense of where we sit in terms of our decision making. I see we've about 70% voted, or we're getting up to 80, so I will start. I will end the poll now after 1 minute, and I'm going to share the results. This is interesting. So what do we see? We have more than 50% saying 50-50, with 80-20 coming just after that. So I'm very now curious to see how Daniel will weave that into his topic. So Daniel, I guess over to you.
Well, the next 10 minutes, hopefully, we'll show you that everybody got that incredibly wrong. I'm Dan. Lovely to speak to you all this morning. I'm from the behavioural science team at Ogilvy. We essentially are a team of social psychologists, cognitive psychologists, behavioural economists, and creative people that are essentially here to figure out new and interesting ways to change behaviour, and often behaviour on sticky problems. So, quite selfishly, the global pandemic at the moment is actually quite an interesting time for us to think about. We all of a sudden, think about the hospitality industry. We also already have a lot of behaviours that we want to change. So actually, quite selfishly, it's quite an interesting time. We've worked on some of the key responses from COVID-19. So we've worked on the Nightingale Field Hospital in the UK, getting people to adhere to safe behaviours. We're about to start helping different sports teams remain fighting fit and fighting clean by making sure that everyone in their entourage is doing the right behaviours, and lots around the hospitality industry too. The key thing to understand about human behaviour, especially in relation to the COVID pandemic response, is that we don't think in the way that we think we think. We think we rationally weigh up lots of situations. We figure out, we calculate how much risk there is in that situation, and then we decide whether to enter or not enter that situation, or do not do that behavior. The truth is, it would be impossible for us to calculate everything we do and everything we book online and every behavior we do every day in that same way. So actually what we do is we rely on lots of different mental shortcuts within our brains. So we've evolved over millions of years, essentially, to have lots of different survival shortcuts in our brain to shortcut the amount of energy it takes us to navigate the world. So the easiest way to think about this might be, if all of a sudden you saw all of us panelists run away from our screens, log off and run out the door, you might not sit there and think, what's wrong? You might start to do the same thing, even more so if we were all in the same room. So we're not actually rationally calculating every single situation. We actually are using mental shortcuts and kind of following the crowd, the herd instinct, what we might call social norms is one of those things. If a policeman or a policewoman came into your room right now and said, please leave the room, we would more than likely do so more than if I came into your room and asked you to do that, because a police person would carry that authority, what psychologists might call the messenger effect, along with that. So we're not calculating rationally things all of the time. We use these different mental shortcuts. And a way of explaining that is to talk about the two parts of the brain, which is what we just tested you on. So actually, if you go up your spine, where the spine meets the brain at the back, you get to the oldest part of the brain. It's called System 1. It's the unconscious automatic part of the brain. It's your co-pilot. And it's fast, it's unconscious, and it's the place where you don't think you think. So if I said to you, what is 5 times 2? 10 pops into your head straight away. That's done with the System 1 part of the brain. Whereas if I said to you 17 times 24, I haven't got anything. But if we were to figure out the answer together without using a calculator, that would be done in the top part of the brain called System 2. It's the newly evolved part of the brain. It's the conscious part of the brain where we think we think. And that's where we do things like 17 times 24. So if you're first learning if anyone on the call plays the piano or any musical instrument, when you first learn to play the piano, you learn it very slowly, tapping the keys 1 by 1 and then 2 by 2. And you do that with your System 2 brain, the conscious part first. But after you played the piano for many, many years, you're then going to learn it back into your System 1 brain at the back. So there's these two parts of the brain. One's fast, one's slow. And what's interesting is to go back to the poll at the beginning, that your System 1 brain is actually calculating 95% of your decisions every single day. So 95% of our behavior, not 50-50, 95% of our behavior is done automatically. It's done with using these survival instincts, these mental shortcuts, what psychologists call heuristics in the background. We don't often know that we're using them. And the challenge with not knowing about how the brain works is that when we look to change human behavior, we might actually try and do it by telling people rational reasons to do things, because that's how we think we can change their minds. But actually, the way to change people's behavior is to understand this mountain, this iceberg down here of how the brain actually works, and work with those mental shortcuts, those psychological principles, to shape behavior. Because if 95% of your decisions are done via that, you're more likely to change behavior by focusing on the system 1 than you are the system 2. In truth, you do a little bit of the both, but we'll get onto that later on. So a large part of our brain is all about automatic processing. And so if we think about hospitality with COVID-19, there's a big question for consumers, which is whether to follow the rules or not. Do we do what everyone else is doing, or do we do what we ought to do? So the interesting thing about this is that there's two types of, we talked about social norms, the idea that we like to do what other people around us are doing. There's actually two types of social norms. There's the descriptive social norm and the injunctive social norm. And you don't have to know those words to know how to use it. Remember if you're driving down a motorway or a fast road and there's a speed limit of, say, 70 miles an hour, then you might keep to 70 miles an hour. You might do between 65 and 70. And you would be following the injunction norm. You're doing what you ought to do, kind of the societal norm, the societal rules. If, however, you know that moment where you see loads of people going faster than the speed limit going past you, and all of a sudden you go, maybe I can do what they're doing, because if they're doing it, I can do it. And that would be what psychologists call the descriptive norm. We're doing what we see other people doing. And sometimes that's when we get that cognitive dissonance, that kind of angst in our brains between, do we do what we think we should do, or do we do what we see other people doing? And actually, often the descriptive norm, seeing what other people do, trumps what we ought to do, which is why it's so hard raising teenagers, I imagine, because you can tell them everything that they should be doing, but the second they see their friends doing something else, they're going to do that. Actually, it's quite interesting when you think about the hospitality industry, though, because there might be many, many worries and many anxieties that people have about going into new spaces and having new experiences that they're not sure are going to be as fulfilling as they used to be. But actually, there might be a power that the industry can use to very early on use these kind of descriptive norms, these social norms, to show people, let's show people that other people are having a great time. Let's very quickly get that in communications, be the front of communications, because the descriptive norms are an incredibly powerful thing. Because like we said at the beginning, we're not evaluating every single situation independently and thinking, is this right or not? We're using all these different mental shortcuts. So if the brain sees lots of other people doing things, it'll be a lot more comfortable knowing they're doing it. It might not be that those people can express, if you said to people in a focus group, can you tell me why you now feel comfortable engaging in the hospitality sector? They might not be able to say, oh, it's because I've seen that lots of other people are doing it. They'll probably post-rationalize another reason. But actually, it would be those smaller reasons there. So actually, you know, when you go into a hotel, there's a really interesting psychologist study in a hotel where you go into the bathroom, there's that small sign that says, please reuse your towels. Now, if you have that sign in the bathroom, it does lead to a certain amount of towel recycling. But if you add on a social norm onto that message and you say, lots of people who stay at this hotel reuse their towels, and because they care about the environment, for example, then you see a significant increase in the amount of people that reuse their towels. That's only because we're adding kind of 8 to 10 words on that sign, increases the behavior by that much. Now, it's interesting. If you say to people in a focus group, not in a hotel, you say, what's going to change your behavior? Is it going to be the environmental message, or is it going to be the social norms message? They say the environmental message. But if you put them into the hotel, you see that the social norms message performs higher than the environmental message. So what we think changes our behavior might not. Now, only a couple of minutes left. I did want to touch on what might be the biggest opportunity from a behavioral science point of view for the hospitality sector. And one of the thoughts we've been having is around a psychological principle known as discretionary effort. And it's basically the idea that you get double points in a customer's mind for doing the things that you don't have to do. So if you think about restaurant chain Five Guys, they have an incredible use of discretionary effort, where not only when you order a burger and a chips do you get that, but they also take a scoop of chips and put another scoop in that bag. So, and that you value that a lot more than just the value of those chips. Those chips aren't very expensive, but you value it because they're doing more than they would have to do. They're beating the injunctive norm, what they ought to do. So actually, in this new world where experiences, at least for a while, are going to be very different. And people are going to find it very hard to evaluate what's the good version of this new experience and what's the bad version of this experience, because all of these rules are going to break the experiences we had. Not knowing what's a good one and what's a bad one, we will seek, it's likely that the brains will be seeking out for discretionary effort. When are people going above and beyond, even in small ways, to what we think they should do? Because I think those things can have an incredible impact, and those things stick in the mind, those things get shared a lot more, and of course all those effects lead to an even bigger social norm. So really what I'm saying is that the biggest power that we have from a psychological point of view in training people in these new behaviors and getting people comfortable with getting back out there is to use the power of other people, because that is what our brain is instinctively looking for. So lots more to say on that issue, but I think I'm at the end of my time. So such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's very good, very nice insights. But just a few comments, or maybe I have even a question. First, when you talked about this kind of descriptive norm, actually, and the followers, is it also to do so? If you look at today, what's happening is also in thanks to the social media, we have the followers, we have influencers. Is it also because what we want, because we refer to someone? Is it also because of this change and the descriptive norm, how much that will influence the industry, actually, because the followers, influencers, what is the impact? Because we follow them.
Massively. And it's really interesting. I think if we think about the human brain has been this very similar for hundreds of thousands of years. It's not about to change because of COVID-19. So the mental shortcuts that we use are going to reliably stay the same. We're still going to respond to scarcity. We're still going to respond to social norms. We're still going to respond to authority figures. What might change is kind of the authority figures that we respond to. And I think you're totally right. I think influencers have a massive power here in really showing us kind of the inside story of the new experiences to get us more comfortable. The last kind of 10 years and the proliferation of influencers has kind of given birth to a whole new level of messenger. And I think you're right, influencers will play a key role here.
Yeah. And secondly, what you pointed out, what was one of the key of the focus, also discretionary effort. I think that in principle, this is nothing new, but it's time to time it's again, I wonder, people come back and say, oh, we really have to offer experiences that we exceed the kind of expectation. We have to surprise the customer at the point when they don't expect it. But it's nothing new. And that's quite an amazing, it comes back and back again. And you mentioned also it's quite important at the moment as well.
Yeah, I mean, the hospitality sector, and actually many sectors that are kind of really people focused, often are natural behavioral scientists. So people that run bars and restaurants, people that run hotels, because they're so in touch with people and often are people. It's no surprise that they're already doing lots of these things. What's really interesting is behavioral science offers a way of codifying some of these things, so we can give them names, and then we can do them in areas where they're maybe not so happening. And that often can be, it also allows us to look at that within industries there can definitely be kind of a swirling vortex of ideas that don't then penetrate other industries. So actually what can be really interesting about behavioral science is we can take what we've learned from the retail industry or from the factory industry, for example, and we can cross-pollinate it back into the hospitality industry to find new and interesting ways. And I think actually at a time of great change, a great uncertainty, there's going to be lots of copycat behavior. One hotel will see another hotel doing that thing and they'll copy it very, very quickly because they'll be able to. What's less easy to copy is to have that vision to look outside of our industry to see how other people are solving these problems and seeing how the hospitality sector can do it.
Very good. That's the nature of the benchmarking, actually, bring the best practice over to your industry. Very good. I think it's a very good point. Thank you, Daniel. Ellery, do we have a question to Daniel from our audience?
We don't, but I mean, I could talk to Daniel for so long, because I love behavioral science, and I think hospitality has so many great things. Maybe one quick question is about fear, and because we see so much uncertainty right now, and the aspect of fear and everything around that, is that do you think that at this maybe shorter period of time, when things are still so uncertain, that we do act more on fear than on rational? What's kind of your viewpoint on that, Daniel?
There's some interesting research on that, actually, that says that the more uncertain people feel, the more they're likely to follow the people around them. Because actually, when we lack information ourselves, or we perceive we lack kind of the information ourselves, that's when we're more likely to go, what's everybody else doing? That's probably the safest thing to do. Because basically, kind of hundreds of thousands of years ago, if the people that followed that crowd that ran across and just ran with them were more likely to survive than the people that didn't. So we're all descendants of people that successfully ran with the tribe that was running across, because there was sometimes a leopard over there. So I think that is probably going to be as true today as it was all that time ago.
Very good. So I think it's a very good point already said. Daniel said it's hospitality. It's a people's business. And really talk about people to people. We serve the customers, we meet, and we create experience, meeting, let's say, the customers face to face. But when we move to the Annika's presentation about what is the impact of technology, if you're really looking at the kind of guest journeys, etc., my question is that how much this technology can take away a certain kind of advantages of certain companies, actually, in hospitality industry, that we are really have built kind of face-to-face, people-to-people kind of experiences. And now, if we replace it, the technology to do certain things in that part, maybe we say, okay, it becomes kind of automatic, or something we're losing certain experience. Annika, I'll give the floor to you. Oh yeah, I will have Paul first.
Paul.
Yes, sorry.
So we have, since we're moving on to more the technology side and how things have been changing on that front, I would like to do another poll. So if you see on your screens right now, again, it's fully anonymous. So I'm going to launch it now. I'm going to read that through with you. What is your greatest technological need? Is it mobile communication and automation? Is it digital conference facilities? Is it integrated seamless experiences? Is it smart room keys? Or is it feedback on social media and feeding it into your systems? So if you can start voting, I will give you a minute or so. I see answers coming in quite quickly. I see one. Oh, okay, there's going to be some change. Interesting. It showed up for one aspect, and now it's going to be evening out. So I'm very excited to see where we end up, because I think this will be a bit of a mixed bag. And I think it will give a bit of context also for Annika, talking about you know, what she's seen in technology and how the behavioral changes have driven companies to probably embrace it much faster than in the past. So we are now about a minute in, and I have about 80% voted. So I'm going to end it now, and I'm going to share the results. So there we go. I'm going to leave that here for a couple of seconds for everyone to get familiarized. It was interesting. The runner-up for quite some time was mobile communication and automation, and then the integrated seamless experiences were starting to take over. So I think this is quite interesting. And I think if we had done this poll 6 months ago, I think digital conference facilities would have been a much smaller share. So I think we're gonna see that growing a lot as well. So I'm gonna stop the share now and hand it over to Annika. So there we go. Annika, floor is yours. Let me just make sure you're unmuted. Give me 1 second. There we go. Yeah.
Should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, first, thank you so much, Daniel. I mean, luckily there's a recording available, so this is definitely one of those webinars that I need to watch again. So there was a lot of interesting insights. Okay. So yeah, thank you and welcome from Estonia. My name is Annika and I am the co-founder of GuestJoy, and I'm really honored to be here. So where to begin? Long journey. I still remember this Friday when we realized how things are going to change. And after the weekend, nothing was going to be the same. And then all of a sudden, for the next months, we were dealing with our customers, helping them to put proper messages together and spread them with their guests. In a way, it brought everybody closer to each other. And besides being a business partner, we were really trying to figure out ways to help each other and our guests, because the situation was new to all of us. It's not that I represent the technology company. I knew straight what was going to happen and what might be the ideal solution. So we really had to cooperate with our customers. And also how hoteliers reached out to technology as it was their only help for fast communication. And it was. They were able to address the right message at the right time to the right guests. Well, I personally think technology is beautiful. We saw how the right use of it brought great results. I mean, like with upselling, it's always been part of GuestJoy, but now it's taken a completely different angle. Hoteliers are using it to ask their guests to book breakfast prior to arrival, take taxi transfers, rent cars, or book dinners in the room. Actually, this morning when I was preparing for the webinar, I was reading an article that Kayak homepage is actually a rental cars at the moment. I mean, I never would have thought in a million years that would be the case, but that's what people are buying right now. Some services are not even so to call nice to have, but more essential. You get the information prior to arrival. It's really in everybody's interest to order ahead of time if possible. I think that after first week, after first week of opening, it really helped hoteliers to paint the picture about the guest expectations and how to build new strategies around it. We are already now getting a lot of data about the services and offers that sell better. This way we can help other hotels to create new offerings in turn. But what we see already, there are three things that guests want. First is to travel more locally. It gives a good opportunity for the hotels to work with local vendors to create local experience. Even if we are talking about a local traveler, we can still find some really cool things they can do. Hoteliers know their personas and can really easily identify what offers and services might be relevant to them. Young couples can do something adventurous for families, workshop ideas, and so on. It's really a question of using imagination and collaborating. The second is not to overpay for anything. Travelers have become really cost conscious. I mean, it's quite clear because I guess a lot of people are still working like with reduced salaries. Third is that they want to prioritize cleanliness and private spaces. They will put weight on what hotels are doing with regards to safety, social distancing, and cleaning. 25% of travelers already consider switching to short-term rentals such as Airbnb because they believe it helps to keep better social distancing. I think that's interesting takeaway for hoteliers also to see, how to communicate their messages. If we think about the digital evolution in other industries, then hotels have been really slow to adapt. Pandemic is forcing hotels to look around new ways to minimize costs, but also to predict new expectations. There is also a fear, because I remember I was once a hotel manager, so I can kind of understand that the challenges ahead of them. So there's this fear, Daniel was also referring to that. What happens if I don't change my procedures? Or for instance, even how far should I go with eliminating the physical contact with the guests? So I'm kind of like starting to follow other people. And I also see that, social media is full of influencers like giving suggestions and recommendations what to do next. So, but what happens if I don't do anything and just wait? Now, one of the top priorities is an online check-in. something that was innovation before has become so essential at the moment. Nobody really wants to spend half an hour waiting in a line to show the identification, fill out the paper registration form, and navigate the way into room straight out of the 90s. I mean, let's be honest, hotel front desk processes have hardly changed over the last 100 years. And now it is about to change. I mean, every story has to begin somewhere. Airlines took this realization and applied it to their operational model with the understanding that the investment would reduce costs and establish a smoother and more efficient check-in experience for travelers. So how are clients' expectations and behavior changing in the hotel industry? Well, in all stages of experience, we see 6 different stages: searching the hotel, booking the hotel, pre-arrival communication, during stay, post-departure communication, and loyalty. So maybe I will explain more about all stages. So searching. Domestic travel will jumpstart the recovery. Nearly 50% of travelers expecting to travel first within their own country. Domestic travel is getting a boost from government around the world. Many travelers are more confident in the knowledge of how their country is really handling the COVID-19 and may not have a good knowledge of how other countries are. So that might put them off, little bit the international travel. So now the booking stage. The booking window is shrinking as consumers take more weight and see approaches to future travel. 40% of global travelers reported canceling their trips during the pandemic, and they feel if they could avoid paying for future cancellations, they wait. We believe that guests are booking directly because they want to read the specific has put in place to manage the risks. OTAs will not usually contain such information, at least not a lot of details. So now the pre-stay communication. The need to communicate clearly with the guest has increased, and as such, properties are taking great measures to ensure they can effectively communicate. So we've seen a lot of trends exploding in popularity, mainly the idea of online check-in, which previously was slow to grow, but is now exploding. But again, I mean, online check-in is just one aspect of the digitalization, and still it tends to be expensive. So what we do, we always suggest hoteliers to do quick A/B testing and start with an easy digital registration forms before changing the locks and doors, because again, it is expensive. And since, I mean, over the past months, no one had like any revenues coming in. So I think that has put on hold, and the poll was also showing that. Also, the upsell and cross-sell focus has shifted somewhat, meaning that properties attempting to maximize the RevPAR have been tailoring their offerings to these new guest expectations. An increase in sale of transfers, in-room sales, such as breakfast, dinner, wine delivery, and other packages have been very common. During stay, we've noticed that are increasing in popularity, including removing the in-room compendium and making it digital. This is because the compendium is complex touch points. It's difficult to thoroughly clean in between the reservations, and the guests may be hesitant to even pick it up. Therefore, many properties have been converting it to digital, at least in a short term. Also, guests don't want to be nagged, but do appreciate if the property checks in on them, if they're staying for a few days or more. The popularity of during stay feedback has risen to the importance of providing guests with a reassurance that the property is attentive to their needs and the quality and safety of their stay. And then the post-stay stage. The guests traveling at this time have a lot more power than they realize, which means hotels have an even bigger responsibility to provide a guest experience. These guests who travel now are in a way unique and courageous. Other people are reluctant to travel. So the experience the guest has will hugely impact other potential travelers. Great feedback about their stay means others might be more confident to travel themselves. Ensuring guest satisfaction is more important than ever. And reaching out to guests to inquire about the satisfaction with their stay is vital. So in turn, getting up-to-date positive reviews on platforms like Google, TripAdvisor, Expedia is essential to help sway guests who are on the fence about whether they should book or not. And then the last, loyalty. A great guest experience goes to waste if we don't try to establish repeat business and loyalty from our customers. An honest, down-to-earth approach to loyalty will resonate well with guests at this time. We've all been through a lot and we're exhausted. So retargeting of guests needs to be done in a natural, friendly way. We've seen a large spike in the popularity of sending out targeted emails after the guest's stay in order to facilitate all that. Guests will return to hotels where they felt safe. So still the safety comes first. So to conclude everything, whether permanently or not, the guest expects a minimal risk experience, which includes reducing human contact to some degree. I don't mean that you need to change everything, but to some degree. Many properties are converting more facets of the guest experience to a digital one, which, given the trend in guest expectations prior to COVID-19, might not be a bad thing. Guests know the significant change is already here, much of which is temporary, and some are here to stay. I don't know if I exceeded my time, but so thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annika. It was really good insights. And I think the process lastly basically said the minimum risk experience. I like that because I think it's quite a interesting challenge for the hospitality companies industry. That is because how to combine a minimal risk experience with maximum product service experience. But you know, at some point you have to have this minimum risk. You really have to take away the fear stuff things, and at the same time really have to exceed expectations to create a kind of custom advocates, which is quite an interesting kind of combination to think about hoteliers, the companies, and it's all about change management for the coming years, actually. And what is particularly difficult for hospitality industry at the moment, because, you know, when the COVID started, revenues went down up to 100%. Everybody else in industry, in different industries, they had experience to deploy the technology, but we haven't had in that industry yet had experience to use that technology or to make that users that the new technology, because we realize now that we have to do the changes now. The customers are coming back, and now we start, let's say, deploying the new technology on along this kind of 6 stages. I think it's a really interesting, and the poll, what I would like to comment, the mobile and automation with seamless experience, it exactly shows that how we merge two things, because how to really build and create experiences, seamless experience by applying different technologies, and what you also were speaking about. That's, I think it's really good. Ellery, you have any question?
Yes, there's one question coming to Annika. Do you think that in order to avoid the human contact, robots will become popular, or would that be further in the future?
Well, I still think that will become further in the future, because well, if we're taking like capitals, then I think that yes, they will digitalize their processes a little bit faster than like countryside hotels, because in some countries we still see that shaking hands is kind of, so they don't really want to get rid of it, but maybe to like a short term, they are now willing to kind of to make some sacrifices in terms of technology. But I think that in 6 months time we will see that what are the new norms, and what are kind of the technologies that are here to stay. Robots in Japan, I think there is already few hotels who are literally using robots. I mean, I think that takes a little bit longer time, but the future is somewhere there, yes.
And I can add on top of that on the robots. So if we're lucky and we can have our forum in October, we have an amazing speaker coming from Germany, and they are specifically focusing on robots in hotels in the European space. So that I think will be very pertinent as a discussion point in a couple of months' time. And we have, just before we move on to Gilberto, and I heard it back to Toomas, we had a comment coming through from the audience saying that hotels are very slow to adapt new technologies. And while I do agree that some of the procedures are straight from the 90s, the government has a role in this as well. For example, Estonian government not accepting digital registration forms, digitally signed forms, which I think we should change. That was my own addition. Hopefully a lot of changes coming in and opportunities to see the technological point of view. So thanks so much for sending the comment. Over to you, Toomas.
Thank you very much. Just maybe one line of comment what Annika mentioned, that the cost consciousness, it's interesting that whether consumers are willing to pay extra to get the, let's say, kind of the minimal risk. This is also, you see that risk may become an added value, and how we manage. That's kind of the whole kind of change also in mindset of the hospitality industry from the managerial point of view as well. Okay, so next speaker, Gilberto. Gilberto can conclude, but of course, before we start with Gilberto, we have Paul, but just introduction. Gilberto, country manager UK at PRISMA, and Gilberto promised actually to kind of conclude the consequences of the change, and also touching upon the kind of hybridization of the space and how flexible approach and design can really make things different. Okay, but now, Ellery, let's have Paul first.
Yes, absolutely. So we've seen a lot of concepts come through, different products in the market when it comes to especially accommodation spaces. So I'm going to launch a poll now just to get a sense of what you as an audience think. Which type of concept do you think will see rapid expansion as a result of COVID? Is it going to be Postel, aka the Posh Hostel concept? Is it co-working and co-living? Is it extended stay, more like an apart hotel? Standalone remote structures such as the tree house or these bubbles we see, or even Öd houses, an Estonian product? Or is it more Airbnb type of rentals? Again, this is an anonymous poll, so take a couple of seconds to see what you think. I think I have a very clear view on this from my side, but it will be interesting to see what the audience thinks. So I see some results coming through. We're halfway there. So I'll give you a few more seconds, and I think that will help Gilberto to kind of formulate his discussion as well. Okay, we have some good stuff coming there. I think we have a clear winner, which I'm quite surprised by. So let's see. I will give 2 more seconds. Let's get up to 70%. Can we get 2 more people to vote? There we go, perfect. And I'm gonna end the poll now. So, and I'm gonna share the results. So it's interesting, right? The winner here is in terms of the rapid growth is an extended stay. And we see that space really blowing up. That is very true. I'm personally quite surprised that co-working, co-living did not get more votes than that, but I'll be interested to hear Gilberto's view on that. So thanks everyone for voting. We really appreciate it. And over to you, Gilberto. Let's make sure you have sound.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you.
So thanks, Hilary. Thanks, Toomas, for the introduction. I'm Gilberto Vizzini. I'm working for PRISMA, that is an interior design and architect practice, an Italian one. I'm based in England, and I'm in charge of all the international projects. What we do is to design experiences and that can create a bond and connection between the brands and the customers, and support this experience through the design of the physical space in different sectors, from workplaces to retail to hospitality, restaurants, and resi. That's just a quick introduction, just to underline the fact that we are living a revolution, but this revolution actually didn't start with the COVID. It started before the coronavirus. It started before this pandemic, and we are living an acceleration of that evolution, of that revolution. In the hospitality sector, it's important to understand that the potential of hotels and the fact that the hotels are going to become part of an entire ecosystem, a kind of molecular of the urban ecosystem, where the physical space for the hotel becomes a touch point for the whole community. I'm not surprised that the poll gave that kind of result today, because I mean, still the fear for the virus is alive, and people are thinking about how we can use the space just for myself, or even keeping the experiences alive. But co-working and co-living is something that it's a trend that started before the coronavirus, and probably is going to evolve as a trend in the future after this period, as most of the trends that we were seeing before the coronavirus are going to evolve. The reason why is that what we see is a need of strong clusterization of the offering, strong clusterization of what the concepts are for every touch point, every physical touch point. We see that in co-living, we see that in office, workplace, we see that in co-working spaces that today are offering the same, almost the same services and the same approach to everyone, everywhere in the world. Before the coronavirus, we already seen co-working or co-living, but also hotels that were trying to focus on a specific experience, on a specific concept, on a specific way of living the space. In fact, that is about also the success of the soft brand, like also Autograph from Marriott, where the signature guarantee a certain level of service and luxury, but every hotel has to be designed, have to be studied with a specific experience, as a specific niche, because the customers are looking for something new, something different to experience. It's the same in the workplace, where companies are trying to not just to design an efficient and effective way of working, but to design a new work lifestyle where the employees are proud of working for a specific company rather than for another one. And hybridization of the service is a key word. I mean, the hotels have plenty space, plenty services, and becoming a hybrid space where they can change with a flexible design the experience every time, every day, that becomes key in the relationship with the client. What I'm trying to say is that the meaning of going to an hotel or to a restaurant have to change. It's not just about a service to support your customers during a trip, but have to become the real destination. And during this pandemic, we've seen a lot of interesting examples in how the creativity of the hospitality sector can evolve and test the new ways of living that space through the experiences. For example, I give you a few examples. Experience hospitality is always related to food. We have seen some hotels that even if they were officially closed or with a really low level of occupancy, they're trying to offer a fine dining experience in their room. Rather than using the room to sleep there, they were using the room as a private fine dining restaurant. It was tested in the luxury world, but also in a concept like Zoku, with partnership in Amsterdam, with partnership maybe with luxury restaurant, with a Michelin star restaurant, and that was really, really successful. And you change completely the perception of the hotel itself. You are not going there just to sleep or as just because you are going to Amsterdam for a trip. You are going there to live a specific, unique experience for that place that is offering that place aligned with their DNA. Or vice versa, the Lebua hotels in Bangkok is offering now a service that is called Hotel to Home. So they are delivering a fine dining experience to your home with your own sommelier, with your own florist, with a babysitter service. And this is also an interesting touch point where in terms of guest experience, so to bring to another level the loyalty that Annika mentioned before. So during the pandemic, the brand that we've been able to create a new level of relationship, more human to human rather than brand to human. Get in contact with your customers, trying to provide them some information, some ideas, some services as well. Loads of restaurants now are selling online the recipes with the online with the video of the chef teaching how to cook, selling the ingredients, selling the recipes, and keep connected. Of course, you miss the service, and you will get back to the restaurant as soon as the pandemic will be finished. But you keep the relationship alive, and it's like having a kind of friend into the brand rather than just have a service there on the corner that is closed and hopefully will be open back as soon as possible. It's the same with we've seen pubs or cocktail bars developing this service, selling the ingredients for the cocktails or bringing the cocktails home door by door. It's really a new level of customer service and a new level of loyalty to keep the connection alive. We were talking about hybridization. We were talking about the working space, and the work hotel. Work hotel is really something that was there before the COVID. After the pandemic, will be probably mainstream. The reason why, from one side, it's just from a real estate perspective. If most of the offices will squeeze the space because of the capability of their staff to work remotely, we will have more people on the street looking for alternative space to their home to work. That means co-working, but that means also restaurant and hotels. So also during the pandemic, we have seen a lot of hotels offering their room as a workplace, as a closed office, in different levels again, from the Zoku that I already mentioned for the restaurant experience, but also from the high-level luxury resort like the London West Hollywood. But I think also in Tallinn, Nordic hotels offer this service of using the room as a closed office. That's really interesting because it differentiates the business, it differentiates the experience. You need, of course, to review a little bit the design of the space to be more flexible, and the operational part of the space to be supportive during the day, and but increase the revenue, increase the occupancy, the number of guests. And of course, you can use your services. You can offer your services during the day to the people that are working remotely. And this is something really interesting as well for the digital nomads. That, I mean, before the COVID, everyone, when we were talking about digital nomads, you can imagine a young guy with a nice Hawaiian shirt in a flip-flop, drinking a mojito or a Moscow Mule from Bali, designing a cool website or being just commenting something on blogs and this kind of stuff. But today, after 4 months of pandemic, that target, the initial target, is increasing. I'm not saying that everyone will become a digital nomad, but that's a niche of clientele that can increase. And we were discussing about this, the possible services that a digital nomad can looking for in Europe already 4 years ago during the one of the conference with the responsible for the Italian Association of Hotels, how to enlarge the high-end season, the high-end season for the south of Italy, for example, where the weather allowed you to go there and maybe work remotely after the peak season in September, October, and November, moving your resort or your hotels from a leisure to employee retreat, allowing people to get there maybe 1 week. Just imagine smart workers or remote workers that can take working from there and take care of their mental health and their also develop maybe business connection. So a specific offering for that niche that is going to grow, we've seen during the pandemic another evolution from the luxury world to the luxury health center. So and a good example is Le Bijou in Zurich, where that is actually a 5-star hotel that moved from being just a 5-star hotel to be a quarantine destination for wealthy people that want you to spend a 15 days quarantine after a travel in a luxury environment, checked with doctors and testing every day for COVID, but also with the services and the opportunity of using the facilities of the hotel. Again, I'm not saying that this is going to last, but what is important is to understand which behaviors are changed during the pandemic and which behaviors will last after that. Probably not all of them, probably just a percentage, but definitely analyzing what was there before will give us the opportunity of understanding what of the trend will accelerate after that.
Thank you very much, Gilberto. I think we really got very good insights also and kind of ideas for the business development in the sector. But what I also like it actually, the pandemic has somehow opened up the creativity and also to think differently in the industry, and this is something that is really, really important. Of course, if you look at the consumer behavior point of view, my question always is that all these new concepts that what you are saying, whether those are let's say, those new concepts are becoming also kind of the niche products, or they are, let's say, kind of in a short term, like you say, changing time to time. In a more added value part, let's say in the upper premium part, yes, I think customers are willing probably to pay of those quick changes over the years. But of course, the question, if there's a cost consciousness, whether we are willing to pay the service, yes, we are changing a lot, but always the question is, yes, whether the market really comes alone. Of course, this might be a very small niches, but I'm not sure. Maybe you want to comment.
Yeah, I don't think it's not just about cost. It's about a bold proposition.
Yes.
About being having a clear message, yes, having a clear purpose, and being bold with it. So we see hostels moving from normal hostels to lifestyle hostels, but yes, keeping the prices low. And we see luxury brands that rather than just offering nice and beautiful environment with beautiful high level of services, they are trying to develop a story living approach. That is the experiential part of the storytelling. Yeah. So it's always about being. It's like in human relationship, you know, Toomas. It's when you meet a person, you want to have in front of you someone that have a purpose, that have something to say that is interesting, to build a relationship. After a while, you can like it or dislike it, but you decide to keep that relationship if you have in front of you someone that with something to say. So it's I think also during the pandemic, people understand the importance of the moment. So every moment counts. We have lost almost 1 year of life. So now, everything you're gonna do outside of your house, outside of your bubble, have to count, have to be with the purpose or with the meaning. Doesn't mean that they have to cost more. It means that have to be taught more.
Yeah. I think the relationship matter more. I think the touch points, every touch point really becomes even more, let's say, meaningful, actually, yes, in that sense as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we really have got very good insights, very good ideas. I think this seminar has also produced for many people, just like Annika said before, just watch over to really think of new ideas, what is going to change from industry, from consumer perspective. And I think that is something to take from that webinar. Thank you, all of you. But maybe, Ellery, do you have any questions, comments from audience?
Yes, I do have one, but since we're really, really tight on time and we wanted to keep this all under an hour, but Gilberto, is one for you if you have a quick answer. Do you think that the hotels and restaurants will adopt technology to provide hospital clean environment in their premises, and will clients pay for that?
I mean, this is an interesting question. This is definitely a reaction to this period, to the pandemic period. I don't think they will last forever, but definitely the sensibility to the materials that can be cleaned easily, but or the way you design the M&E and the way you design the space is something that will last. Of course, won't be a hospital clean because it's really not convenient after this period. It won't be like that, but definitely more sensibility to that, as it happens in the past in the workplace for all the well certification and the importance of natural light. If we think about that, I mean, natural light is something that have to be important, but before, I mean, 15 years ago, wasn't like that. The sensibility is going to last. Probably the level of cleanness of the hospital won't be needed, hopefully.
Thanks for that, Gilberto. I'm going to share my screen now and just take you to 2 more slides. First of all, I want to thank all our panelists, and thank you, Toomas, for taking on the moderation. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you to Annika and Ben and Gilberto. There's some amazing insights, and I know Kati will work hard to get the infographic produced. So we'll send that out at some point tomorrow, together with announcements for the next speakers for next week. So we'll be back next week, but episode 4 about cost, revenue management, and pricing. It will be maybe slightly more technical, but we all know there's a price war out there, and there's a lot of things going on in that space. It's been great having you all join. Make sure that you check back onto our website. All the information is there, and we'll send that over to you again. So thank you again to all our panelists, our partners, Enterprise Estonia and City of Tallinn. All have a great continuation of summer and keep the business going. My name is Hilary Rand, and on behalf of New Baltic Hospitality Forum, I wanna thank all of you and see you next week. Bye bye.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
And